Prudence. Welcome to Rishikesh, the yoga capital of the world and a magnet for spiritual seekers from all walks of life. So we're here today with Prudence Farrow Bruns, who for most people does not need an introduction at all. Prudence is the sister of Mia Farrow, daughter of Hollywood actress Maureen O'Sullivan, and daughter of John Farrow, producer and director. She is also the focus of the Beatles song Dear Prudence, written over 50 years ago here, high above the Ganga River. Exactly 50 years ago, I think. Right. This is where the Beatles and other celebrities gathered to study with Maharishi the advanced knowledge on the nature of human consciousness and how it can be easily developed and expanded to its full potential through the practice of Transcendental Meditation, or TM. So Prudence, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Could you please share with us what TM is and what it is about TM that drew you to come here to study under Maharishi at such a young age of only 20?
Well, that's a big question. But I think you started off the answer right there where you said that developing human consciousness. So I was born in 1948 and grew up in the Cold War of the 50s when the H-bomb was developed. And I was in a generation where a lot of us realized we'd had 2 world wars behind us and did not want to go through a 3rd world war, which would have involved the H-bomb. So we felt that we needed to take a new direction as humans, find a way that would make us more enlightened or better human beings, because if we continued as our parents had and their parents, we saw the end. Mm-hmm. So a lot of us that came of age in the 60s came to that conclusion together. And where you said development of human consciousness, mm-hmm. that was what we were thinking the change had to be. It had to be from us. And we had the technologies, we were amazing. Of course, we didn't have the iPhone and all of that, mm-hmm. but we had still at that point amazing technologies. But we hadn't done anything with our own consciousness. And I know in my case and with my friends, we read about these amazing beings like Buddha, mm-hmm. and that India had these rishis, mm-hmm. these people who were different than the rest of us, who were able to develop their consciousness. So it was a matter of just trying to figure out what that was and what it was about. And when I was 18, I went to visit I was living in Manhattan, and I went to visit my brother in California. And he had a friend who was just coming back from India, who had studied with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And I was looking into meditation. I was trying to meditate, mm-hmm. but nobody could explain what to do. I would go to the Zen centers and they would say, all right, time to meditate, we're going to meditate for a half hour, and everyone close your eyes. Mm-hmm. But nobody said, okay, this is what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It just, I couldn't figure it out. But this man came, this friend of my brother, older brothers, and he asked me, I was reading this book on meditation, it was Rosicrucian meditation. And he said, what are you reading? And I said, I'm reading about meditation. And he said, oh, I have just the thing for you. Mm-hmm. And he explained about TM. What he said is deep inside of all of us, mm-hmm. is a part of the mind that's silent, mm-hmm. and that's blissful and creative. And we can tap into that. And when you tap into it, you can bring that out into your experience out here. Mm-hmm. And the simplicity and directness of his explanation just struck me like a rock. Mm. I mean, it was like, that's it. Yes. That's what I've been looking for, because everything else had been so complicated. Sure. I couldn't understand. But as I started to do it, I understood more that there is this part of the mind. Mm-hmm. It's in all of us, and we talk about it even, but we can't really embrace it. Mm-hmm. When we say, oh, I wish I'd listened to myself, when we don't do what we should do.
Yeah.
And we regret it. We say, I wish I listened to myself. well, what do we mean when we say that? Who is myself?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we didn't have a voice that said, now listen here. But we had something inside of us, like a register or something telling us
Like
we
a
were
guide.
that we were going off base.
Mm-hmm.
That is that part of the mind. We call it our center. We do call it our self.
Mm-hmm.
We call it our core. And then we speak about it in yoga, in the yoga world.
Mm-hmm.
But in the American yoga world, which is mostly around the asanas,
Sure.
there's no real way of connecting with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where TM comes in, because what Maharishi Mahesh Yogi did was amazing. What he did is he took this ancient technique
Mm-hmm.
and he made it appropriate for us in the West. He simplified it and he explained it.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, yes, there's this part of your mind. It's part of you. And you'll know it. You'll feel like you've come home when you tap into it.
Mm-hmm.
But by tapping into it, you begin to cultivate it. And by cultivating it, what happens is that instead of always being lost in the busy part of your mind, your emotions, your different perceptions, you begin to have a place of operation, a kind of base that you operate from that doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings a different perspective to everything, because you're stronger, you can see things more clearly, you can make better decisions because you can see more what the parameters are rather than being caught in things the way we are normally.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's almost like we have two parts to our mind. We have the mind we're familiar with, but there's this other part, and it has not been used. And if we bring it into use, it changes the balance of things. Right now it's like a scale that's tipped completely in the favor of the busy mind.
Sure, yeah.
And when you bring the gravitas of the silent mind in, what happens is it brings balance and order to this part of the mind. So it settles down. And that brings the balanced mind, which is, yoga is all about samatwa.
Balance, yeah.
Balance. And so when you said developing consciousness, that is exactly what this is all about. And it is the next most important step we can make as human beings. Because without it, we will always be imbalanced. We'll always be less than we can be. With the introduction of this part of the mind, we become more stable. We become wiser and deeper. It's a deep part of the mind. And we become happier. So a lot of the problems, in fact, all of the problems in our world today can be boiled down to or taken back to man or humans, ourselves. If we can advance ourselves like we've advanced our technologies, then we can continue to live in this shrinking world where there's more and more of us interacting, more and more of us with different backgrounds.
Yes.
And more we're going to have to learn to live with each other. And
That's
more
true.
and more we're going to have to be wiser and happier and bigger. When we're vulnerable, we're not ourselves. We become jealous, we become angry, we say things we don't really mean. All of that comes from being not as strong as we should be. So this is, I feel, the most important technology of our time. It really is, because it's time now to advance humankind. Without that, just forget the world. I mean, forget all the enormous achievements we've made.
Right.
If we don't grow ourselves, all of that will come to naught. So it's very, very important people recognize that. And the people who do yoga, asanas, they need to wake up to the larger yoga.
Sure.
Because the yoga asanas are important. It's introducing them to more peaceful possibilities. But we have to go further. And that is to our own consciousness. And that was always the goal of yoga, was to become, enlightened.
Yes.
The best that we can be.
Yes. That's wonderful. That's
So that's what brought me here. when I was able to go study with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, he was the only one who could explain and take me on the journey I needed to really understand what this development of consciousness was about.
Yes.
I could trust him, and I knew he was the only one who could really interpret it all. And so when I found that I could go and study with him, it was the most thrilling point in my life.
And that was 50 years ago.
50 years
this
ago.
week or
yes,
recent?
This is a pilgrimage.
Yes.
In gratitude
That's
to that
fantastic.
time that I was able to spend here for 4 months, going deep inside under his supervision.
That's really, really wonderful. Can you tell us all how TM is different than other types of meditation or self-development?
Well, TM, I mean, I'm not an expert on others. I've taught a lot of people who do mindfulness. And most of the other techniques that are out there, like Vipassana, mindfulness, Zen meditations, they come from the Buddhist tradition. This comes from the yoga tradition. So the end goals are the same. This is very direct, very simple. When I teach people who have been doing other methods, they are, profoundly shocked by the profundity of this and the directness. This takes you to this deepest part of the mind and allows you to start to cultivate a relationship with it.
So these are people who've learned other types of meditation, and then they come and learn
mindfulness
TM.
is about being more raising kundalini or trying to open the chakras. All of these things that happen as a result of the connection with yourself, the growth of that. So better to just go straight to the
source.
core.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that would be what I would say is the big difference. Is that you're
And
going straight to
yes.
that and really developing that in yourself and in your experience.
That's really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about TM since 1968, since those precious days here in Rishikesh, and how TM is being applied today to alleviate stress and other problems in the world?
I mean, one thing that the yoga world, which now we have close to 40 million practitioners in the United States alone, is most of the people go to that for stress release.
Yes.
And it's very good for that. But what its counterpart, which is sort of the crown jewel of the yoga practices, which is the meditation, what it is about is not just dealing with your momentary stress, but working on the deeper stresses we all carry with us, what we call our baggage. It heals those profound stresses that often determine how we relate to the world or don't relate to the world, that make us less than what we are. And that was what brought me to meditation, ultimately, was that I needed help desperately. And this was the only thing that could deal with what we would call the kinds of stress that PTSD talks about. It heals that. And now lots of people in our world today, which is moving so fast, have PTSD level stress.
Right.
And they don't just need momentary relief. They need deeper relief. And this is where TM does that. It gives you momentary relief, but it also gives you that profound healing that's needed so that those kinds of stresses can no longer dictate to your life. And
because our body holds on to stress.
It does.
And so I think through the yoga practitioners maybe think through the physical practice, there's some release, but I guess it doesn't reach the real conscious level.
Exactly. That's
Such as
perfectly
TM.
said.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's extremely important. If we're going to really be the people we know we are deep inside, we have to heal those stresses that make us less than who we are.
Our full potential.
That's
our full
right.
potential.
Yes, that's perfect.
I've heard Maharishi.
Yes,
That
yes,
he has
that's
said.
the way
I didn't hear him personally, but,
Yeah, but that's
I've
the
heard
way
you
he
talk
would
about.
explain
Yes.
our full potential. I never knew what our full potential meant
Yeah.
because I'd never lived it.
Yes.
And I thought, it meant you'd be a genius or something.
You sure?
And I thought, well, I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
I do want to definitely get rid of these stresses.
Yes.
But that full potential does mean being fully who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your talents, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a mother, whether you're an artist, whether you're a teacher, using yourself completely. That is our deepest impulse.
Right.
Because we're creatures of life.
Yes.
And life is about expressing. And all of us ultimately are driven by that. And this opens that door inside so that it can fully come through, that life. And we as humans can express who we are, in our fullest potential. And that's the full potential there. Yeah.
Yeah, so wonderful, so interesting. Let's see. It seems that TM has a lot of potential then in alleviating the stresses of modern living.
It does. It's very good. I'll say one thing.
Yes.
Is that I teach it still. I've been teaching since I went in 1968. Maharishi made me a teacher, which I didn't expect him to at all.
Right.
Because in my mind, I was the last person who should make us a teacher. But he did.
Yes.
And I've been teaching ever since, and I've grown up teaching. I've learned a lot about the world through teaching. But I've also seen the world grow through time in my aging process as a teacher also, because I see many different people come. And one of the interesting things that I've found as a teacher is that people forget who they are.
Yes,
and they
of course.
identify with their stressed person. They lose sight. Once in a while, somebody will come to me and say, I know I can be more, and I want to reach that. But most people accept I am, an anxious person, or I'm an angry person, or I am this person, and they've forgotten that yes, that is who they are right now. That is their stress. It's like being sick. That's their dysfunctional person.
Right.
But there is deep inside a healthier person, and that is who they are.
Who they really are.
Who they really are.
That's wonderful. Now that you have lived such a fulfilling life over the past 50 years as a TM teacher, can you share with us any advice for the younger generations that might be looking for a similarly fulfilling experience?
Yes, with the younger people, what I would say is please wake up. The world will be yours. Make it better than we have. There are the answers. There is a solution. Now, a lot of the time, my generation and the world that I've presented, that our generation has presented the younger generations, it's a world sorely lacking, and a lot of the young people see that. We've had the quest for the American dream and all of that. Surmount the quest for a better world. We won't be happy if we're selfish. We won't have a world that works if it's every man for himself. And that's what the world we've given these young people is. We've shown you it doesn't work if you go after these things.
Right.
If you want a world that works, you have to start with yourself. You have to be responsible for this world. You have to care about it before. I mean, certainly we should all be comfortable. We should have a certain amount of wealth and happiness, yes. But we have to care about each other. We have to care about our world. We have to be more conscious how we live, We are a little bit more conscious of what we put in our bodies, which we weren't when I was young. But we have to be conscious of what we put in our minds as well, and what we give out. And this meditation, yoga, is a way of making ourselves very quickly wiser, changing, deepening ourselves so that we're better people. We're better people just spontaneously, more connected, more caring, more loving. That's what we need for the world. The technology's magnificent, but it'll be a hell if we're not where we should be. All of the dreams that we've gone for in the outer world will turn into hell if we don't do something about ourselves. We have got to change how we are, and we have like the best technology through Maharishi. And that means be more conscious, be
Good
more
message.
caring, be more connected, care about each other, care about your world, take care of it, and take care of each other. We're all in this little boat, this little planet together, and it's getting smaller and smaller. And we're all going to have to live with each other. So learn how to do it. If we're threatened due to our stresses, and we're threatened, we become jealous or angry or feel that people are less than we are or are frightened by their differences, that's not going to take us very far. That's the world of the past. Let's move into the future. Let's move into a world where we can accept difference because it's all around us. But we're all human. We're all human, and we're all in this little planet Earth, and we need to live together and take care of our Earth and each other.
And that starts with work on the self.
Yes, exactly.
And TM is not a difficult process. It's easy to learn,
It is
easy to
so
practice.
easy. It's so easy. You learn it. We have 4 days of teaching because we're very responsible about it. But you learn it right away the first time you sit to do it. It's very simple. It's very profound. And it's a real change. It's the future. It's the future. The future is us.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's go.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Prudence. Thank you for sharing with us this inspiring wisdom and this technique that seems so practical, so simple. We all wish you continued success in spreading the knowledge around the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All of us do.
Namaste.
Yeah. Namaste. I want to introduce so that you can see what I've been talking about. You can see Maharishi, you can hear his words. From a film that was done in 1968. It was right after he'd been in Rishikesh, when I'd been in Rishikesh with him. And it was in Canada at Lake Louise. And he's talking about TM, and you'll hear it in his words.
The depth of the lake and the ripples and the beautiful reflection of the glacier reminds me of the story of inner life. The mind is deep like a lake. The ripples on the surface represent the conscious mind, the activity of the mind on the surface. And the whole depth of the lake is silent. And that is the subconscious mind, which is not used by the waves. But if the waves could deepen and incorporate more silent levels of the water, the waves could become the waves of the ocean, the mighty waves. This is what happens in Transcendental Meditation. The surface activity of the conscious mind deepens and incorporates within its fold the depth of the subconscious. And with practice, nothing remains subconscious. The whole subconscious becomes conscious. And a man starts using full potential of the mind. And the reflection of the glacier on the water is like the impression of the objects that the mind perceives. And as long as the mind is not capable of maintaining its essential nature, which is bliss consciousness, so long the mind gets imprinted by the perceptions of the objects, and this is called the bondage of the mind. The mind loses bliss consciousness and gains the joy of the reflections of the world, the joy of the relative order, losing the bliss of the absolute eternal being. When the mind is not capable of maintaining its essential nature, the bliss consciousness, and is overshadowed by the reflections of the object of perception, then only the object remains and the subject as if becomes annihilated. This annihilation of the subjective nature within is a great loss. It's a loss of eternal bliss at the cost of temporary joys. Such a life where the value of the matter dominates is called material life, and the spirit gets annihilated. But when through the practice of transcendental meditation, the mind goes deep within to the source of thought, transcends the thought and gains bliss consciousness, and is capable of maintaining that even when it comes out into the worldly experience of objective nature, then it is called spiritual life, that the spirit is not capable of being overshadowed anymore by the objective experience. And this is spiritual life. This is life in eternal liberation. And without this, life is in bondage, a great loss, as if loss of £1 billion and gain of 1 million, loss of eternal bliss consciousness and gain of a worldly fleeting joy. The vision of the lake brings about a great teaching of spiritual life. Life is bliss. It's pure existence. Just like the flower is the sap. The different layers of manifestation of pure existence, pure being, absolute consciousness, pure intelligence. This is what life is. And as it expresses itself, it expresses in layers of existence, layers of energy, layers of intelligence, layers of bliss, happiness. This is life. See all this beautiful nature. People in their sad and miserable moods, in their stressed and strained life, even if they come out to this beautiful nature, they can't enjoy. What is needed is the bliss out of transcendental meditation, the joy, the happy mood. If all the population of the people could practice transcendental meditation, they'll enjoy all this nature to the maximum. We are going to create a society free from suffering and stress and strain. And then, really, the gift of God on earth, such pretty nature, will be enjoyed by everyone.